In this video, we're going to make a yellow gold Cuban link chain worth over $100,000 and weighing approximately 2 kilograms. If you're not familiar with the metric system, that's about 4.4 pounds of gold around your neck. We begin by weighing how much pure or 24 karat gold we need in pennyweights. Since this chain is supposed to be 14 karat in quality, we will add an alloy of copper, zinc, and silver to the gold to come up with a mixture that's 14 parts gold and 10 parts other metals. Most of the jewelry in the United States is also made in 14 karat gold. Due to the sheer size of this chain, we decided to split and work the gold in 2 batches. The total starting weight is about 2,220 pennyweights, or around 3,450 grams of 14 karat gold. That's about $115,000 in just gold alone. The reason we need so much gold is because weight needs to be filed down during the manufacturing process to give the chain a flatter look. Now, it's time to melt all this down in a ceramic crucible that can withstand temperatures up to 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit, 550 degrees higher than the melting point for gold. Borax is also sprinkled into the crucible in order to help purify the gold mixture and make it easier to melt. We'll be using a combination of natural gas and oxygen to melt the alloy down. The gold is then poured into the cast iron ingot to make our first bar. The same process is repeated for the second batch of gold, and we wind up with 2 14 karat gold bars when all is said and done. Scanning the bars with the Niton XL2 X-ray analyzer shows that Au, the chemical symbol for gold, makes up about 59% of the bar's composition. During the next step, we begin stretching each gold bar on the rolling mill. Each pass through the mill stretches the gold bar more and more, making it longer and longer. This process continues until the diameter of the bar is appropriate for the size of chain we're making. During many segments of the video, you'll see the gold being heated and then cooled off. This is a process called annealing and is used to reduce the hardness of the metal and make it easier to work with. A draw plate machine is then used to pull the wire through and round it off. The wire is fed through the draw plate enough times until the rounding process is completed. The next process requires a lot of physical work. For relatively smaller diameter chains, an electric drill can be used to wind the gold wire onto a properly sized copper bar to form a coil. But for a chain of this size, 2 people must complete the process by hand, using 4 sets of locking pliers. A bench lathe is then used to cut through the 2 sets of coils in order to separate the individual links that will be intertwined to make the Cuban chain. This is one expensive bowl of Cheerios. The gold links are cleaned multiple times by immersing them in a hot sodium bisulfate acid solution, which is used multiple times throughout the video to clean the surface of the gold. The individual links are then pried open and daisy-chained together. Gold solder is then used to fuse the links one by one. If too much heat is applied to the joints during the soldering process, the gold will melt and the link will be ruined. If not enough heat is used, the solder will not melt properly and you'll create gaps in the chain. The soldering process continues until a rough version of the chain is ready. After some annealing, the chain gets one more bath in the hot acid solution. The chain is then attached to an industrial twisting machine that exerts torque on both ends in different directions. With enough twisting, the individual links are eventually aligned on the same plane. Any minor adjustments necessary to align the links are then applied by hand with a wrench. Then the link alignment process is completed by passing the chain a few times through a rolling mill in order to align the links even further. At this stage, our Cuban link chain is measuring around 28 inches in length and weighing about 2,700 grams. Some extra links were set aside earlier just in case a few would get damaged during manufacturing and needed to be replaced. In order to secure the chain for filing, it is laid out over a wooden board and shellac resin is melted over it. The board is then secured tightly using a vise, and one of the most labor-intensive parts of the Cuban link chain making process begins: flattening the links through filing. The gold shavings and dust that come loose are collected and used to make other jewelry at a later time. Here's where a jeweler's passion comes into play, since a job well done can add the right amount of symmetry and beauty to the finished chain. Lastly, 220 and 320 grit sandpaper are used to smoothen the gold surface even further. The chain is then removed from the board, and the process is repeated on the other side. The polishing stage then begins with a touch-up inspection and pre-polishing with a rotary tool. Polishing then concludes on a bench lathe with a buffing wheel. This is another tedious and time-consuming process, but one that is essential to make an attractive, high-quality chain. After the chain goes through the final cleaning process using ultrasound and steam, it's time to work on the most special clasp we've ever made. First, we cast the clasp from a 14-karat gold alloy mixture to match the chain. The molten gold is added to the plaster that contains a wax mold of the different parts of the clasp inside. The hot gold melts the wax inside the cast, and when the plaster is washed away, only the molded gold pieces remain. This is actually the first time we use a clasp design like this one, which includes an engraving of our CRM logo. After preparing and pre-polishing the main parts of the clasp, it is time to make the gold pin that secures the lid in place and allows it to swing open and close. The process is similar to the one we used near the beginning with the 2 gold bars. But since the pin requires a much smaller wire, we use a smaller rolling mill and draw plate to complete the task. Before we attach the clasp to the chain, we need to cut a piece off both end links past the midpoint. The cuts must be made straight and at the right angle, otherwise the clasp won't be aligned properly with the actual chain once it's welded. Now, we proceed to weld the 2 interlocking sections of the clasp to the end links. We felt that adding tiny diamonds to the clasp of a chain this large would provide just the right finishing touch the chain needed. So we went ahead and added 2 rows of stones on the edge of the clasp to jazz up the overall design. A few finishing touches and a light polish, and now our clasp and chain are complete. The final gold chain weighed approximately 2,086 grams and measured 28.5 inches long, including the diamond clasp. The width of the chain was around 33 millimeters and the thickness about 12 millimeters. So what do you think about our 2-kilo Miami Cuban link chain and the amount of work and skill that goes into the making of a chain like this? Also, what is the largest gold chain you would ever wear? Let us know in the comment below, and make sure to check the important links in the description of the video.